Hello, my name is Patrick Nyland. This is week 10 of the road to publishing my first book. It's genuinely hard to believe it's been 10 weeks since I started this series. So, for those of you who've been watching this series, recently I've been doing a lot of sitting around while I wait to edit my draft. When I write a draft, I like to let it sit for a month before I come back and rewrite it or edit it. For next week's writing vlog, I should be reading my first draft for Operation Ark. And to be honest, I'm pretty nervous to see what it looks like. That feels a little weird to say because obviously I wrote it, but sometimes it's really hard to judge the quality of something while you're writing it. Which is one of the main reasons I actually like to let my drafts sit for a month before I edit them. In my opinion, you just can't look at something objectively when you just created it. For the first week or so, it was actually pretty nice to take a break from Operation Ark. I had been writing a lot. I wrote the entire draft in 5 weeks? It was a ton of writing, a ton of work. I was not burnt out, but it was nice to kind of take a break from it. These past few weeks, though, since I haven't actively been working on Operation Ark, I've been starting to get a little bored. I'm the type of person who constantly likes to be working on a project. And while I have been working on other side projects here and there, it hasn't been the same feeling of working on Operation Ark. Also, while I'm not working on my draft, it's really frustrating to make these writing vlogs. Like going into this week, I had no clue what I was going to talk about for this video. At least I had no clue what I was going to talk about until I was going through my room and I found this, one of my old writing projects. Considering I'm going to be reading over my draft for Operation Ark next week, I think it'd be a great idea to go back and read some of my writing projects from before I even knew I wanted to be a writer. I already know this is going to be slightly embarrassing. I've known I want to write a book for a long time now. Considering I'm 22 now, I'd say I've known I wanted to write a book for 8 years now, maybe 7 years, turning 8 years on my birthday, September 30th. Yeah, around 8 years ago, that's when I first started writing fanfiction. And that's also when I started working on some of my really early projects, like The Far and The Exotron. Yeah, Operation Ark is not the first book I've written. It's actually not even going to be the first book I put out, actually. That's Europa. For those of you who don't know, I'm not going to get too much into it, but Europa is a disaster of a book that I wrote in 1 week and published on Wattpad. I'm going to link it below just because I mentioned it. Don't read it. Anyway, I actually have first drafts of other books I've written in the past put aside. They just are not good enough, in my opinion. This is not a great strategy as a writer, but I actually took on Operation Ark because it was a book idea that I was less passionate about. And at the time I took it on 2 years ago, I figured it was a book idea I was less worried about ruining. I had this fear, well, I still have this fear, that my first book is going to be an absolute disaster. Now, 2 years later of on and off working on Operation Ark, I'm absolutely obsessed with the idea. So that concept of not caring too much if the first book I publish absolutely flops is out the window. Anyway, I went on a bit of a tangent there. I actually also do that when I'm writing. But what I was saying was I've gone through early writing on this channel from when I first decided I wanted to be an author, but I've never really gone through early writing from before I knew I wanted to be an author. So I figured that'd be something fun to do in this vlog, starting with The Dark Side of the Force by Patrick Nyland. Yeah, in case you haven't noticed, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I don't know if this is like an actual story or like an almanac of like Star Wars that I tried to write, like a little Wikipedia type project. I have a cover page like The Dark Side of the Force by Patrick Nyland. Then there's a blank table of contents. Like many of my writing projects, I probably did not finish this one. That seems to be a theme in my early writer career. Chapter 1, The Dark Side of the Force. The dark side of the Force is very powerful. It can prevent people from dying. Anyone except yourself. I think I spelled that wrong. Is yourself one word or 2 word? I think it's 1 word, right? I wrote it as 2 words. Only Sith have this power. Sith only have one fear. It's losing their power. I spelled losing Lousing. Losing. Oh god. Believe it or not, as bad as it is, my spelling has actually gotten better over the years. Slightly. Kind of. Some Sith can create blue lightning out of their fingers. These sparks could be deadly. Sith can also use the Force. Yeah, so this isn't an actual story, it's like a Star Wars almanac. But even reading it, I can kind of see what my early writing was like. I made this a long time ago. Chapter 2, The Emperor. The Emperor has 3 main names. The Emperor, Emperor Palpatine, and the Sith Lord. Believe it or not, in these 2 sentences, I spelled Emperor 3 different ways. I don't think any of them were the right way to spell Emperor. Although, to be honest, I don't really know how to spell Emperor. If I had to guess, it's probably something like Empire, but with an E-R-O-R, so like E-M-P-I-R-O-R? Yeah, I said my spelling was better, I didn't say it was good. Palpatine has the power of Sith lightning. He also has a red-bladed lightsaber. He's a human. His home planet is the Naboo. He is 1.78 meters tall and he weighs 75 kilograms. Yeah, this isn't really a page turner. So chapter 3 is about Darth Maul, and I actually included a picture. Let me get it for you. I drew a picture of Darth Maul. As you can see, I'm also artistically challenged, as you could probably guess from my thumbnails. I will say, I think my handwriting was nicer back then as it is now. Let me get a recent. Let me get a recent notebook to show you my dreadful handwriting. I would definitely say this is a step in the wrong direction. My hands is like cramping from holding the pencil I put the microphone on. Also, that's why I'm holding this. I'm trying to improve the audio in these videos. I always have it strapped to my shirt, but I feel like that's just not providing the best audio. Whenever I move or anything, it gets all fizzly. So we'll see if this is better. So then in chapter 4, I get into the machinery and talk about the dark side machines. There's some more horrific drawings. Check out my Death Star. Yeah, this was a long time ago. I really wish I dated it so I knew how old it was. I spelled Anakin, A-N-I-C-I-N. Oh my god. Picture of Darth Vader. But yeah, being a Star Wars fan as a kid is definitely a huge reason why I want to write sci-fi now. One of my biggest dreams is to write a book that inspires future sci-fi authors. You know, keep the cycle going. 31 pages in, I must have gotten bored because I included a section to write your own fun stuff about Star Wars. That kind of reminds me of that habit I have now where I'll just put brackets that say, insert fight scene later. Editing me hates when drafting me does that. So the Star Wars book wasn't really much of a story, but I also found The Adventures of Billy Bob from September of 2014, which would make me 12. You ready? The Adventures of Billy Bob. It was a warm summer day. The sun was shining. Everyone was happy, except for a strange boy named Billy Bob. Billy Bob was always alone. He was loud, annoying, and not too smart. In the sentence where I wrote not too smart, I used the wrong too. I'm not too smart. Now you are probably wondering why Billy Bob was sad. Well, Billy Bob thought the sun killed the moon. This is actually what he thought happens every morning. No one ever told him differently. He felt bad for the moon, and he wanted to kill the sun to avenge the moon and bring justice. The first thing he tried to solve the problem was 911. That day, Billy Bob called 911 and screamed, "Help, help, there's been a murder. Come, please. I don't know what to do." The police came looking for a dead body, only to find a boy pointing at the sun. They talked to Billy's mom and left. Later that day, Billy was grounded. He also still had the urge to avenge the moon. So he snuck out of the house and started his I'm so bad at reading out loud. So he snuck out of the house and started his next master plan. This time, he found a ladder. He then filled a bucket of water. He limbed the ladder and shouted at the sun, and threw the bucket towards it. The bucket went over his fence into his neighbor, Mr. Bobbit. I spelled fence wrong. Mr. Bobbit never liked Billy Bob, especially now. She shouted till she turned purple, but then she fainted and died. Mom said it was a heart attack. Oh man. I feel like I read this out loud in class and I'm so embarrassed. There is a chapter 2, but I think I'll save that for a future reading. I'm genuinely so glad that I've held on to projects like this. It's really cool to see how my love for writing evolved over the years. And it's also really fun to see how even early on I was injecting dark humor into my writing. In the comments, let me know how old you were when you first decided you wanted to write a book. If you enjoyed me reading some of my early writing, I have to ask my mom. I know she has a lot of it saved up. There's something about reading through my old projects that's just making me smile right now. I have a feeling reading The Adventures of Billy Bob was a much more enjoyable experience than reading the first draft of Operation Ark is going to be next week. But we'll see, maybe I'll be surprised. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you next Sunday. I know this episode of The Road to Publishing My First Book is coming out on Monday. Next week, I promise I'll be back to my Sunday posting schedule. Thank you again for watching. Have a great week.